Drive! Step on it! Move an elbow into his face! Coach Yasudis yelled from the edge of the court. Moisture darkened his underarms and gathered on his brow. Sweat made his thinning hair flatten and hang down. For the coach, watching his players was as exhausting as playing. He ran up and down the court, shouting plays through cupped hands and slapping a clipboard against his thighs when a play was executed poorly. The 2-hour workouts were intense. Shafts of afternoon sunlight glared on the polished gym floor. Today's practice featured the A team, the first stringers, against the B team, the players who sat on the bench chewing their fingernails during the regular games. "Come on, Durkins, get in his face," the coach scolded. "Mendoza, move you can." The basketball echoed in the Columbus Junior High School gym, where banners of the team's championship years, 1980, 1987, 1989, hung from the rafters. "Bukowski, breathe on him. Maneuver left. Net. Cut. Grady. Press." Shoes squeaked as the players hustled up and down the court. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead and the heater blew warm, dusty air. A few students sat cross-legged on the bench, books piled in their laps, watching. In the far corner, 3 cheerleaders bounced from foot to foot, chanting, "Hey, hey, what do you say?" It was practice hour for them, too. Lincoln blew past the center, Grady, and leaping to his left, slammed the ball through the hoop. Came down hard, jamming his already hurt toe. He stopped for a moment, grimacing, then hobbled after the other players, a spark of pain flashing his foot. "Come on," Coach hissed, as he ran his hands through his hair. He blew a whistle that hung on a chain around his wrist and whacked his clipboard against his thigh. The players came to a stop. The sound of their breathing filled the gym as they stood with hands on their hips. One player knelt down on one knee, but he rose when Coach gave him an angry look. The cheerleaders, oblivious to the game, raised their arms and screamed. "Mendoza, take a seat. Buckley, come in." Lincoln trotted slowly to the bench, where he took a seat between the 2 remaining players, both second stringers with skinny legs, and smothered his face in a towel. A thin line of sweat snaked down his arm. The hair on his thighs was matted to his skin. He took off his left shoe and sock and rubbed his toe gingerly. He turned to the player who was keeping score and asked, "How many buckets did I get?" The player looked down at his score sheet. 4 and 2 free throws. "How's your leg?" "It's my toe. Hurts bad." The 2 of them looked briefly at the toe, then turned their attention back to the game. The A team was up by 7, 22-15. Coach is going to be upset, Lincoln thought. The A team should be clobbering second stringers. Lincoln wiped his face and froze when the coach said, "Mendoza, put your shoe back on." "Who do you think you are? Someone special? Magic Johnson? James Worthy?" "I hurt my toe." "Poor boy. He hurt his itsy bitsy toe." None of the players laughed with the coach. Lincoln stared angrily at the coach, who turned away with a smirk. "Who do you think you are?" Lincoln thought as he slipped his hurt foot back into his shoe. A spark of pain flared when he tugged on the laces. Lincoln couldn't understand why Coach was always on his back. He was always on time to practice, and he was never a loudmouth like Bukowski or Durkins. He never complained about his injuries either. In last week's game, the one that kept Columbus in the league race, he got jabbed in the eye. On purpose, he thought, because he was slamming all the boards. But he just blinked until the pain lessened, and he let his eye tear until the vision returned to normal. Another time, he sprained a finger, but that didn't stop him from scoring 13 points. Lincoln grunted as he yanked at the laces, sweat dripping from his face and dotting the floor around him. He breathed in deeply and jogged slowly back to center court along with the 2 guys from the bench. Immediately, Lincoln scored a basket on a sweet 3-second in the air layup, but he was fouled with a stinging slap to the wrist. He missed at the free throw line, and for the remaining minutes of the first half, He went without another basket. At halftime, the coach went into his office to use the telephone. He returned a few minutes later to scold the players for their poor defense and slow breaks. Think! You're just going through the motions, the coach shouted, a bib of sweat clinging to the front of his sweatshirt. Lincoln looked at James, who had scored 5 buckets, his best performance this year. James wiped his face with his arm and popped his knuckles one by one. In the second half, the A-team pulled away in spite of James' one-man show of 4 more buckets. Lincoln scored only 3 buckets during half, and he trudged up the floor, toe hurting. Coach grew tired of running up and down the court, yelling. He threw himself into a folding chair and only now and then shouted, "Foul!" or "Get in his face!" At the end of the 4th period, the score was 47-32. Coach made the boys do 3 laps around the gym before he let them shower. On the last lap, Coach joined them and tried to be jolly, but the teams just looked at the floor, breathing hard. The cheerleaders were gone. The shafts of sunlight that had blazed the gym floor were gone. The heater was off, and the janitor was pulling the window shut. In the shower, James bragged about scoring 18 points. "Seriously, Link, I'm for real. I can hit outside or inside. I can snake through the smallest gap." Hey, I like that. Snake. Snake James. "Right, Holmes," Lincoln said, moving so that the machine gun burst of water bounced against his chest. He had to agree that James had played a scrappy game. The little guy could leap like a trout, claw like a bear. "You did all right. Let me use your shampoo." James threw him the tube. Lincoln squeezed it until a coil of blue stuff dribbled into his palm. "How's the toe?" "Hurts. Coach is on my back." "Yeah, he can be weird." A crown of suds grew tall and white on Lincoln's head. He faced away from the shower, and the hot water cut hard into his back. By the time Lincoln and James finished showering, dusk had settled in the streets. The billboard across from the school was lit, advertising a soft drink by showing 2 guys on a surfboard. At the corner, cars idled at a red light, the ghosts of white exhaust blowing from their tailpipes and racing into the dark air. Lincoln wondered about surfing, a gavacho pastime. What he knew was the indoor pool at Mission Community Center and 1,000 brown bodies kicking the water white. They walked in silence, each exhausted from hard play. James pinched a few corn nuts from a pocket of his jacket and popped them into his mouth. James asked, "What do you think of Monica?" "Pretty cute, huh?" Lincoln searched the corner of his own jacket for corn nuts, sunflower seeds, a flake of potato chip, anything to replace the salt he left on the gym floor. "She's real cute." "Do you have any more corn nuts?" "Yeah." "Do you think she has a boyfriend?" Lincoln asked as he ground the corn nut to mush between his teeth. "No." "What makes you say no?" "I don't know. She doesn't seem the type." They walked in silence for 2 blocks before Lincoln asked, "What kind of type is she?" "You know, the kind that studies. Pretty straight, good at math." Lincoln thought of Vicky, his ex-girlfriend. She was smart too, but she was different from Monica. Maybe a little taller, maybe more social. But he couldn't say for sure. Both were Mexican-American and cute, but at this point, neither was a part of his life. They stopped at the 7-Eleven and bought another bag of corn nuts and a Slurpee, which they shared, lapping up the sweetness of cherry-flavored ice. Lincoln licked the salty corn nuts from his palm. Lincoln told James he had to get home to start dinner. There were potatoes to peel, and Flacco would need company. Before he got hurt, Flacco had spent his days roaming about sniffing the lawns of the new neighborhood, but now Flacco stayed around the porch and the backyard and slept under the pear tree, unnoticed by the neighbor's cat, who sometimes climbed over the fence to eat from his bowl. As Lincoln turned into his block, their neighborhood, the north, Mr. Schulman was pulling his Mercedes into his driveway. Lincoln said, "Hi," as he passed Mr. Schulman, who was getting out of his car with a bulging briefcase, his arm pinching a large black book against his chest. The neighbor said hello and turned away in a fit of coughing. His belly wiggled over his belt, and even in the half-darkness, Lincoln could see that Mr. Schulman was not a happy man. Flacco was sitting on the front lawn. When he heard Lincoln's footstep, he beat his tail against the grass and tried to walk despite his bandaged front leg. Lincoln hugged his dog and ran a hand through his dusty fur. He pulled out a leaf caught in his collar and said, "My foot hurts too. Gotta hang, my man." The dog had been a gift from Lincoln's father when he and his mother separated. Lincoln had been 7, and he had cried when his father left the house with a small TV and boxes of clothes. He saw his father now and then, but mostly his contact with him was through letters and birthday cards thick with $1 bills. Once his father had sent him a pair of boxing gloves, which he and Tony had laced up to beat each other silly for 2 hours straight. But that was years ago. His father was now living in Los Angeles, and Lincoln and his mother were in Northern California in a dull suburb that went to sleep at 9 o'clock sharp. Together, Flacco and Lincoln walked up the steps, slow because Flacco's bandaged leg, and went into the front door. The steam of cooking beans and potatoes uncurled into the air, fogging up the windows. Lincoln threw his backpack on the couch and called out, "Hi, Mom. You home early?" "I'm here." His mother was in the kitchen pounding a round steak with a knife he had bought for her birthday. He realized the knife was not a sentimental gift, but he liked the way it looked, with the black handle and a dime-right blade so sharp it could split a hair 9 ways. Or so he imagined. "I was done with work. Cansada," she said. She was in a jogging suit. Her hair was tied back in a bandana, and her feet were smothered in rabbit slippers he had bought her last Christmas. "Mijo, Tony called. He wants you to call back." Lincoln turned down the radio, which was playing Marvin Gaye's "I Heard It Through the Grapevine." What did he want? Forgot to remind him this morning he still owes me $2. "No sé. Llámalo." "Why does he owe you $2? The oven door squeaked open, and his mother brought out the large black frying pan that Lincoln always thought must be from Mexico. Lincoln had seen white people cook with chrome or copper-colored frying pans, but every Mexican mother Lincoln knew cooked her groceries into savory delights in black cast-iron pans. "It's an old bet. Remember when the Niners were playing, Mom?" "No," she said. "It was a bet on a game, and he never paid." Lincoln went to the sink and got himself a tall glass of water. His mother noticed his limp and asked, "¿Qué te pasó en la pierna?" "What happened to your leg?" He caught his breath after drinking long and hard and said, "It's my toe. I hurt it again in practice." "You should soak it and rest. I got us a video for tonight. The birds." "I saw it, but I'll see it again." Lincoln got another glass of water and this time drank slowly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Flacco pawing the pantry door. "¿Tienes hambre?" Lincoln asked as he bent down on one knee and took Flacco's head into his hands. He ruffled Flacco's fur and combed it with his hand. "Mom, what's the word for dog food in Spanish?" His mother stopped and looked at the wall, brow pinched, and thought, "No sé. Ask your Spanish teacher." Lincoln opened a can of dog food and scooped it out with a spoon. As he sat down in a chair to watch Flacco eat, he realized how tired he was. His toe throbbed. His wrist, slapped by Durkins in the first period, was bruised, and his arm hurt from when he caught an elbow while working inside under the hoop. He decided to take his mom's suggestion and soak his foot. As the bathtub filled with water, he decided to soak his whole body. He threw in handfuls of bubble bath and laughed as the pink suds grew mountainous. "I deserve this," he said to himself as he lowered his body into the water. It's hot." While he rested in the water, steam rising like smoke from incense, he read the sports section of the newspaper. The Warriors had lost again, but they were the team to stand by. The Lakers, good as they were, with players like Magic Johnson and the spirit of the recently departed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, were to be hissed at. The Warriors, he thought, were like his old school, Franklin. Franklin was a poor school, grim and sad because the kids were poor, but scrappy, like the Warriors. The Lakers were like his new school, rich and full of the right moves. Lincoln was drying off when he heard his mother say, "Ándale, muchacho, apurate, y saca al Flacco, and take Flacco outside." Lincoln scrubbed his hair dry with a towel and stepped back into his jeans. He put on the first t-shirt that read, "Hey," and barefoot hurried to the kitchen. He tugged Flacco by the collar, put him out, and said, "Come on, chamacho." Mother and son ate in silence. They were tired and hungry, and talking would keep them from slicing through steamy carne asada and scooping up frijoles and papas in rips of warm tortilla. His milk went down cold. His mother sipped from her glass of water. When Lincoln finished his first helping, he said, "Ah, Mom, that was good," then helped himself to a second serving of frijoles and another tortilla. Only when they were finished did they let Flacco back in. Flacco dragged his leg and whined for a small taste of their dinner. "¿Qué quieres?" Lincoln whispered when his mother got up to answer the telephone in the hall. He snatched the flag of meat from the pan, and Flacco leapt for it, hurt leg and all. His mother returned to the kitchen. "Ay, Dios, gente, these people. They think money grows on trees. You give once to a charity, and now everyone calls." Almost every evening, some group, the Democratic Party, the Veterans for Foreign Affairs, Schools for the Handicapped, called asking for money. It's because we live in a better part of town now. A lo mejor. Maybe. The phone rang again, and this time it was his mom's new boyfriend, Roy. Lincoln listened to his mother say, "Yes, sounds good." "No, you're silly. So we'll go out Friday." "With Lincoln?" Flacco looked at Lincoln, and Lincoln looked at the wall. He didn't like it when his mother dated men who flinched when a dog barked, and Flacco barked a lot. After Lincoln washed the dishes and put in the video cassette, they sat together on the couch, his mother with a cup of coffee, Lincoln with an ice cream drumstick, and Flacco with a milk bone.